All right, how's everybody doing today? Welcome back to You Don't Know Ball. And I figured it's only right. With the amount of still good, productive free agents on the table, I figured it was only right that we just discuss my favorite landing spots for each and every one of them. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So if you remember, a couple years ago, Julian Blackmon was kind of rising up the ranks quickly, kind of becoming one of the more popular safeties in the league. And then injuries derailed that second year, and he's kind of been able to not really find the footing as much ever since then. However, I still think the talent's there, and I think my favorite landing spot for him will be bringing him over to this Raiders defense here. Now, hear me out. Again, Marcus Epps you just signed, I know. I think at this point I consider that's like good depth. If we bring in Julian Blackmon, potential starter, or vice versa, where he's the depth for Epps, it's a tongue twister, but you get what I'm saying. Either Epps the starter, Blackmon's the starter, see how it looks at camp, and the Raiders, albeit still standing really nice here at $28 million left in cap space, so you definitely got plenty of room to sign Julian Blackmon. I think personally that Julian Blackmon to the Raiders, especially knowing they need that secondary help bolstering that defense for probably not a lot of money here, I think this would be a great landing spot for him. Next up, we have Stephon Gilmore, former Defensive Player of the Year, still a very productive player, obviously slowing down a little bit over the years. He's getting older, but still a guy you want to have in that locker room, great veteran presence, winning presence, Super Bowl presence, and I think the spot for Stephon Gilmore is going to be right over here for the Detroit Lions defense. Because also, again, obviously, the Lions still have $26 million cap space here, and I know Stephon will probably take out a good 10, 11 chunk out of that, but it can only be a 1-year deal, 2-year deal. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. You get him in the room. We know the Lions are competing for a Super Bowl right now. You bring him in here right now, start him at X, start him at Y, wherever you want to play him. I don't really care. He will be productive in that room. He will be a great guy to help these young defensive backs out. I think that the way I see it, there is no better landing spot right now than the Detroit Lions for Stephon Gilmore. And then the next free agent we obviously got to talk about here is Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon Clowney is an interesting player where, yeah, he's getting older, but he's also coming off tied for the most sacks in his career. Obviously not the same stout run defender he used to be, but still a damn good one nonetheless. And coming off a good season, rotating on that Baltimore line, I think the spot that I'm thinking for Jadeveon Clowney is over here in Cincinnati, baby. I mean, hear me out. You know, whether you want to play him straight on the outside, rotating with Hubbard, or rotating with Hill, I think you're getting great value here. The Bengals D-line obviously still needs help, needs some bolstering. Get Jadeveon Clowney in on a 1-year, 2-year deal for nothing crazy, not taking up tons of cap space, because again, we come over to here, Bengals sitting on a $30 million in cap space, so definitely nothing shabby, definitely got money, and we know the Bengals, same as that we were just talking about for the Lions, it's win now mode, we're not pushing anything off to the future. I think bringing Jadeveon Clowney in the building, that experience, getting so close over the last few years but not going all the way, getting a hungry player, I think I love him right here to the Bengals. All right, and up next, you know he was coming sooner or later, we got to talk about Tyler Boyd. Again, a guy who, as you can see here, when he's that number 2 guy who can push 1,000-yard seasons. And then obviously, you know, he kind of became, over the years, more the wide receiver 3, slot target. And that's no problem, because he's still productive in that role regardless, just kind of overshadowed by the combination of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But nonetheless, again, it's not like that's something to be unproud of. It's just now he was a part of a great group, kind of got overshadowed a little bit, but still a very productive player, good hands, and a guy you want in your offense. A spot that I envision him, where I will admit, it'll be a little bit tricky to figure it out because they're not sitting on much cap space. They're sitting on roughly $7 million, barely over that. But a spot that I love is just bring Tyler Boyd over here to the Kansas City Chiefs, man. Because hear me out on this one. You know, right now, the debate is who the Chiefs can take with their first-round pick. And it's more like not who, but which receiver are they going to take with that first-round pick. Well, you bring Tyler Boyd in on a cheap deal. Again, that's where it becomes an issue. I don't know how much money he's going to be willing to go down to be a part of a winning team like the Chiefs. But if he's willing to do it for a 1 or 2 year deal, kind of a prove-it deal, where you get him on that short-term deal, kind of gives you time to not have to worry about receiver this year, especially early, because we know with those first-round picks, I'm always going to say, I will keep saying, I'm always trenches first. You want to, bolster up the spots that are really hard to find in free agency, whereas vice versa, it's much easier to find receivers, running back, that kind of skill positions in free agency. It's a lot harder to find trench guys that are productive for good money. I feel like you go Tyler Boyd right here, give yourself a lot more flexibility with that first-round pick, and that's always what you want, especially when you already are in dynasty standing and you need to keep hitting on these first-round picks. And then up next, you knew he was coming sooner than later. We got Justin Simmons here. Again, arguably one of the biggest names, if not the biggest name that got released, where everyone's kind of shocked. It makes sense, though, when you look at it from the perspective of Denver's trying to get younger, he's getting older, he was worth a lot of money. I understand the vision. But now, you're just Justin Simmons, you're in a position where you're the veteran, you get to dictate where you want to go, and put yourself in a situation where it could be potentially much better than in Denver. Now, the situation, I think, is going to be the best for Justin Simmons. Bring him over to this Commanders defense, as we can see, desperately in need of a safety. And again, because I'm not even sure if this is exactly how things are going to go with the depth chart. I'm seeing on other sites it's listed where Forrest is the strong safety, Chin's playing slot like he did last year. It's kind of all over the place. But the reality of the situation is how I view it, is that the Commanders need a free safety. And you get yourself Justin Simmons on a cheaper deal, or if you want to pay him a little bit more, it's fine, because again, back to salary cap, we're over here basically sitting towards, if we're rounding up, $50 million for the Commanders, 49 if we're not. But regardless, fantastic money to have sitting. You're sitting at number 2 just under the Patriots by roughly less than $1 million. So you got money to spend. And if you think Justin Simmons can come in that building, make an immediate impact, especially help out that rookie quarterback, take some pressure off them, have the defense performing better, I think there's nothing wrong with it. And I think, in fact, it could be a great move, adding another veteran, commanding presence to that Commanders defense, no pun intended. I think I love Justin Simmons to the Commanders. And then coming off that ACL tear, we got Connor Williams, who again, before the tear, was having a good season. And now we're in a situation where we have to project how much is he going to be worth post-injury, how much is he going to be willing to go down and accept, and now finally, who's a good fit for Connor Williams. Taking all those pieces into consideration, the spot that I figured is got to be the best spot for Connor, and just hear me out for a sec. I think I love him on the Seattle Seahawks. Because again, comes back from the tear this year looking really good, looking good early. You say to yourself, well, we got an instant plug-and-play starter. We're just going to rock with it and pray that he stays healthy. But if that's not the case and he's not looking healthy right away, and you have to, we have to take some time, we got to rotate, we got to figure out what we're going to do, well, we still need that depth regardless, very clearly. So, in my opinion, I look at it like whether he's depth or whether he's your starter, he's still someone who can produce for you long-term, and depending on how long you get him on contract. And then also, Seahawks have $16 million in cap, where again, that's not a great number, but I think it's definitely more than enough to be able to get Connor Williams on a deal coming off of that tear. So this is one of those ones where it's a little bit interesting, but let me know what you think in the comments. I think I'd love to see Connor Williams as depth or a starter, however it works, on the Seattle Seahawks. So up next, we got Xavier Howard, former All-Pro back in 2020, and I'm thinking outside the box in this one just a little bit. Because I don't know if some of y'all saw it the other day. He was kind of throwing some hints out there, I think, a little cryptic. But in an interview, was saying how Brian Flores was a great guy, loved playing for him. Maybe throwing a few hints out there that, hey, I wouldn't mind being a Viking and coming back and playing in that Flores system where I was so dominant. But again, I'm thinking a little outside the box in this one. I think the best situation for Xavier Howard is over here in this Los Angeles Chargers defense. Now, hear me out. Again, minus Samuel Jr., who really hasn't had, Asante's been solid, but nothing incredible. We're very lackluster in the DB room here. And minus Alohi going. And Derwin is still, Derwin's still Derwin, but at post-injury and stuff, he's just not the same Derwin he was before. Let me be clear. I still love Derwin, but just not the same Derwin he was before. So, with that said, we bring in Xavier Howard. Bring him into that Jim Harbaugh culture. I feel like this could be the perfect situation for him. And, again, even if he's charging up a little bit, we got $38 million, $39 from rounding up here for the Chargers in cap room. Fourth most in the league. Nothing shabby, and certainly enough to get the job done. So, if Jim Harbaugh's feeling it, and Xavier's feeling it, I feel like a little union here in Los Angeles definitely might be the best case scenario for Xavier Howard. And up next, we got Steven Nelson, coming off of what you could really argue was his best season of his career at age 30 for the Texans. Again, one of these guys where you can see he's bounced around to, multiple different teams, but really not too much fault of his own. Just, he's just one of those guys where he's moved around, but he still is a productive player. And this would thing more than anything, let me be clear. I think he's going to be coming in where maybe just the best few years of his career towards the end here, as we can see, as he's been rising. And again, like I'm saying, coming off that best season. Now, where I think he's going to suit him best landing spot for him and for the team. So I got him here at the Indianapolis Colts. Now, more than anything, what I like about Steven Nelson is kind of like you can play him anywhere. He's a very versatile guy. In this case, probably, presumably going to line him up here at X. But we can figure out how we want to do it. We can line him up at Y, bring Brent's over to the X. Again, Kenny Moore is the slot. We're not really messing with Kenny. But the point is, we got versatility and a team who really needs a corner that we don't have to reach on it early in the draft. And with that being said, I don't think you're going to need to spend a ton on Steven Nelson. But even if he's charging more than you thought, you're sitting on $22 million cap. You definitely got enough to get the job done. I think Steven Nelson to the Colts would be a fire move for both sides. And then finally, to close us out today, we got the veteran guard, Dalton Risner. Again, one of these guys, just solid, right? Coming off of maybe not his best year last year. Again, getting a bit older and maybe more of a rotational player at this point than a starter, or maybe a starter, just depends. And that's actually exactly why I think the best landing spot for him, now hear me out, to me it's pretty obvious, is the Miami Dolphins. Because regardless of whether he's going to start here or be depth for us, we know we need a guard. And Dalton Risner's not going to be taking tons of money. He's coming off of a 1-year, $3 million deal for the Vikings, wasn't able to get re-signed off of that. So again, I think we're looking at a situation where you can get him for right around that same price, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. But regardless, if you're the Dolphins, we're sitting right here on $13 million in cap, which again, nothing crazy, nothing really good. But at the same time, it's enough to get Dalton Risner on the roster and at least have him at the least for depth. You need it desperately. Still got to protect Tua. I think, to me, this is the most obvious one of all the landing spots. I don't know why the Dolphins haven't made a move on him yet. All right, and thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed, drop a like, drop a sub. We would love to see you back. You have a great rest of your day.